Greetings, Patrick here, Eight Questions with, and welcome to the show. Uh, it is a cold and gray and overcast day here in southeastern Michigan, but at least we're doing better than a lot of other people are because tornado season got off to a early start uh, over here in the Midwest. We've had a tornado hit a town called Union City, which is probably about 100 miles away from us. And yeah, unfortunately, that was a I was just hoping that, we always hope that, in the rural areas, there's enough open air, open space that the tornadoes will not hurt anybody. Uh, but three people died. That's unfortunate, very unfortunate. Actually, it's a miracle that more didn't. It's absolutely amazing to see how these tornadoes on the ground they move. Some move really slow. I mean, the super big wedge tornadoes go super slow sometimes. But wow, this tornado, when you saw it, you weren't surprised to know that people passed because that thing was moving like a bat out of hell. It's amazing how fast it was going. I was like, wow, if you didn't have any warning at all, I mean, wow. And it's been hitting last night too. They had a 120-mile supercell that went through Indiana, Illinois, and dropping several tornadoes and hitting a lot of homes and towns and yeah, it's not a good jump to the tornado season. It's pretty awful, to tell you the truth. Um, so our thoughts and prayers go out to those people affected. I still am still amazed that we got one here about going to be on 3 years now. It was just a little EF zero tornado, but it still did damage. It ripped up a park pretty good and knocked off power. And I was one of the ones who lost power. We lost power for 3 days for, just for an E0 tornado. So that's the light. That's the lightest of the light, and still we lost power for 3 days. Today we are talking with novelist Frank Schildiner. Oh God, I can't. I'm killing his name. I know I'm killing his name. Hey Doc. Hey Tony. How are you? How are you? Glad you're here. Uh, 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 I have to send you something, Doc. This guy posted on TikTok. He posted that he got Godzilla trading cards. Not kidding. He says Godzilla trading cards, and he opened up a couple of packs, and they were pretty amazing. I have to admit, I had to write to him because I wanted to know if he got any Gigants. I was like, "Hey, you got it?" He says, "No, I haven't pulled those yet, but I'm still trying." So we're going to be talking with novelist Frank. Oh God, I'm just going to call him Frank until I hear his last name, and then I'll feel more comfortable with it. Um, See, that's what I was saying yesterday. When we were talking to Kyle Strotz. I was sitting there saying, I just kill people's names. Now, I mean, I'm known for that. It's like you want to see entertainment, just give Patrick a really hard last name to say and grab the popcorn because they'll be here all night trying to get it. But we're gonna be talking with Frank. We got made aware of Frank through another guest that we had on the show, Win Scott Eckert, and he says Frank is a hell of a writer, and I love pulp books. Um, I like the characters, like the Shadow, the Avengers, the Wold Newton universe, Doc Savage. I love all that. And Frank is also loves it too because he's written several books, including one called "Loose The Falcon." The Falcon was a very well known pulp character. He's also written a trilogy about Frankenstein that we'll get into, and which I mentioned because the new Frankenstein movie, The Bride, is out, and now unfortunately, from what I've heard, uh, it's out, but no one's seeing it. And I've heard from good voices too, from people whose voices I respect, who said that the movie was really good. And then one said the movie was really good. Matter of fact, uh, um, I saw that on Madame Cadaver's group. Madame Cadaver reviewed the bride, and said that it was really good, but then they introduced Mary Shelley into it. Mary Shelley is a real life, the real life author of it. So they sort of blended the fantasy with reality, and she says it didn't really work out too well. That's a risky take. That's definitely a risky take. But the movie's not doing too well, even though it has a great cast. It has Christian Bale starring in it. It also has Maggie Gyllenhaal, who wrote and directed it. Unfortunately, it's just taking a beating at the box office. It looks like it's going to lose a lot of money. I personally feel like it's one of those movies where they probably should have made it for like $20 million, just to see how, because no one's asking for a movie like this. See, that's what kills me. It's like I don't understand how they decide on how a movie gets made. Especially like this. It's like nobody asks for it. And there's nobody does. You go on boards and groups and just talking to people, and you listen to what they want what they want, and they don't want certain movies. Like, they don't want another Robin Hood, they don't want another King Arthur, they don't want another you know William Tell. They just, people don't. Now, some characters, yeah, they're all people are always open for it. In fact, the one I can think of right off my top of my head, that every time you do mention it, people are excited about it, and that's Sherlock Holmes. Oh, and Godzilla, of course, Godzilla, and Gigan. Mention Gigan, people are going to say, "Hell yeah!" But Sherlock Holmes is a good example of a character that, when you mention that you want to do a project with Sherlock Holmes, people do get excited. Um, it's just that kind of character, and then you really want to see who they're bringing to the party to play him. Now, I think part of the reason why Sherlock Holmes has always remained so popular in popular media, and in the public eye, is because not so much of the stories, but of a character who's been absolutely perfectly cast in so many different movies. I can't think of a really bad Sherlock Holmes. Um, I don't really I don't really recall any. I mean, all the Sherlock Holmes that I've been involved with or known, since I've been following the character, they're always good. Um, so when someone mentions they're going to do another, like they're doing one called Young Sherlock Holmes, okay, I'm down with it. you know. But if someone came to me and says, "Well, we're going to do a young King Arthur," no, please. We're going to do the Bride of Frankenstein. Been done. Really don't hear anybody sitting there clamoring on the bandwagon wanting to see another one. Um, so anyway, so that's something we're going to talk about too, when it comes down to writing a known property like Frankenstein. Like, Frank has written about several different characters that have already been established. So to go in there and go behind that, I think in a sense that might even be more of a difficult writing assignment than to come up with your own creation. I think it's harder. I mean, you can write your own character and have that freedom, but then when you have to write a character like the Falcon, or Doc Savage, or the Avenger, or the Shadow, or Batman, or for that matter, or any Star Trek, Star Wars novel, it is super hard to get behind. You have to write within so many parameters. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. You could have this character do this, but you can't have them do that. I mean, there's just rules. And when it comes down to writing about an established character, like, you just can't sit there and say, "Okay, I'm going to write a Sherlock Holmes book and have him die, in the fall, and he ain't coming back." No, you can't do that. Um, I mean, one, the state won't let you do it, and two, the public won't let you do it. The public will not support that. Yeah, and so that's a challenge. Um, so anyway, I got a I'm doing getting ready to do dollar theater, and so I'm getting ready my next round of getting my next round here going, and yeah, the new one's coming out on Monday. We're covering Godzilla. Monday. And then after that, then we're doing Jet Li's Fearless. Can't wait for that. And then A Bug's Life. I know I got everybody going like I got everybody going like, okay, we're going back to horror. And I put out Wicked Little Things. It has done really, really well. Thank you so much for that. It's got over 500 views so far. I'll take it. I'll take it. As most of my reviews for the volume 2 have been, nobody's been watching those. But they've been watching my horror. Two out of the 3 horror movies. Well, I did a Gamera movie that did really well, and then I did Wicked Little Things that did really, really well. And then I did Z, which nobody's watched, and it's a really good movie. It's a real good movie. Um, so I got a bunch of, but then I'm doing horror. And then I'm all of a sudden, then it's like I'm stepping out again because now I'm going to do Kung Fu movie, and then I'm going to do A Bug's Life, um, which fun, right? Um, and then we're going back. We're going back. I promise you, we're going back. We've got some movies that people have asked for me to review. I'm getting to them now. You're gonna see some reviews coming out of movies that people have asked me to review, which I'm very flattered because that anybody wants to know what I think. I'm always flattered by that. Um, and then I found something strange. So our good friend Hobbs sent me some goodies, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this. Um, and so one of the movies he sent me was this movie from Uncork called The Lighthouse. Now this is on my list of movies that's coming to Dollar Theater. Okay, this is going to get reviewed. But what cracks me up about this movie is the synopsis, right? Now I've seen this happen before. At one time, I was at Dollar Theater. I was looking, or not Dollar Family Video. Dollar Theater. I got that in my brain. I was over at Family Video, and I was looking at the 10 for 10 section. And I grabbed this one book. I grabbed this one movie, and I looked on the back of it. The entire movie was in the synopsis. They wrote the synopsis included everything that was going to happen in the movie, including the main character dying. Yeah. So I'm like, wow, if I'm a director or a producer and I see this, I'm gonna go ape shit because you got done just telling the whole damn movie on the back of the DVD. I never thought I'd see that again. Never. Meet the Lighthouse. It's 2 paragraphs. It's 2 paragraphs, and it tells 90% of the story. I don't know how people let that go. How do you ship this out? There's the story right there. It tells you basically the story. And it's like, wow, how does that work? Um I yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, it's based off a true story. Okay, yeah, maybe so, but we didn't know. We didn't need to know about it until we watched it. So anyway, Uncorked. I think you dropped the ball there, but that was one of the weird things. When I was picking the movie out to watch, I read the synopsis of it, and I'm going like, what the hell? I didn't think I'd see that again. We are always talking about we're always talking about too the you know about the independent films, getting into independence. I'm really glad I am doing this. I got a couple other ones here. I have not, I have so many of these blind buys. Like this one here was sent to me, but I have other ones that I got from the Dollar Tree. A lot of blind buy or unknown horror films, and I haven't really done a lot of those recently. A lot of the horror I've done has been sort of more mainstreamish, and so looking forward to going back to and going to do some Uncorked and some ITNs. They put out a lot of cool movies. Yeah, and so uh, let's see. I'm still recovering from my ordeal with Alucard. Um, we did a watch party on Monday for the Guns of Chupacabra. Um, yeah, I'm 2 days later, I'm still trying to put the experience to words. Um, and I don't know how this happened or why. I think I was temporarily stricken with insanity. But me and Al are going to come back and do another one by director Don Jackson and star Scott Shaw. We're doing um, the rollerblades or something like that. The rollerblades of death or some shit like that. I don't know. I saw it. I saw it on YouTube, and I looked at the cast. The cast is like, wow, this is the cast is like some well-known people, but I just want to know. I just want to know how they got tricked into doing it. So I contacted Al and I said, "Hey, man, I'll do another one of those with you. I don't know what possessed me. I really don't know what possessed me to say that after the ordeal that we went through before." Um, but I said, "Hey, man, I'll be willing to, come back and revisit another Scott Shaw movie." And so we're going to be watching the rollerblade guys, girls, whatever on April 13th. I have no idea why I said it. I just, wackiness. I don't know. Um, all right. Well, tomorrow, I will say this. Tomorrow we have, we're very excited to have on horror editor Danielle Sunday. See, I said that name right. See, I did say that name right. Sunday, she will be here tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, that's we're talking about writing. Sunby, Sunday, 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 Sunby. Okay, this is another one. Sundby. I'm going to say Sunby until I hear it differently. But she is a horror editor. She is an editor, and she helps independent writers with their horror books. If it's spooky, scary, goes bump in the night, and you want to, and you're writing a scary book, and you want to make sure it gets seen in front of some people, and especially young. Oh, speaking of writers, the doorbell has rang, so I'm going to finally learn how to say Frank's last name, and then we'll probably even talk a little bit about some Jet Li stuff too. All right. So thanks for being here, and let's go talk to Frank. Hello.
Hey there. Seem to be having some camera issues here today.
I
Okay.
thought I thought I thought I thought my mind was clouded.
Well, maybe it was. I'm wearing a shadow shirt.
Hell to the yes. I love it. All right.
Oh, absolutely. But of course, the cameras decided not.
Oh, he even did better than that. He'll have to come back up, and we'll get him back up here. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, that was a pure luck right there, because I had no idea he was wearing a shadow shirt. That was just strictly, but I'm not really surprised because I love the character so much. You knew we were going to be talking about the shadow. All right. Let me see if I can help him out. See if he needs me to. I think he's trying to fix his phone, his camera. But I'm just gonna let him know on Facebook just when he's done, just to come back up. Oh, there he is. Yeah, there he is.
There I am.
Yeah. All right. So I guess the first question is, how the hell do I say your last name?
Schildiner, but call me Frank.
Shildon. See, I was crushing it. I absolutely. I bet you're sitting there going like, I wonder how many times he could fuck my name up. Let's count. All right. One, two, three.
Well, I'm usually
Probably about
called Schindler, even though there's no N there. Been called Schindler my whole life, well before the movie.
uh-huh. You
I
should you should have said, yeah, he was a cousin of mine.
Well, I'm Jewish, so probably not.
But that's a great character though. Austin. I
Oscar
mean, that's a
Schindler. Oh
pop.
yeah.
Yes.
I actually heard his name long before the movie because there's a garden outside of one of the museums in Tel Aviv where they put up people like Raoul Wallenberg and other people who helped save lives. And the two
Right.
names that I learned there was his name, and there was a Japanese name, which escapes me at the moment, of a Japanese diplomat who didn't agree with the policies, nor did really Japan towards Jewish people. So he used it to send people to Japan. And of course, the Nazis complained, and this is in Poland, where my part of my family's from. And he uh, kept working right up until he was leaving. He was throwing permissions that he was stamping out the window of the train to save lives. And it's like that's estimated. I think he saved 8,000 people.
Wow.
And he even left his official stamp behind so that he could save more lives. And unfortunately, he didn't have much of a life after that. He was like a fisherman. He didn't have any kind of big life, but he saved 8,000 people. So
Well,
good person.
he's immortal.
Always will be.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Uh,
that's him. And
mm,
these are the things you discover when you wander. I only
yeah.
found it because I wandered away from my group. I got bored listening to somebody and took a walk.
That happened to me once. My wife and I, we went down to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, and my dad was with us, and we went down there and we were joined a group, and it's a massive, massive building, and has all these planes and artifacts around, and so I'm a military historian. I love reading about it. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my wife and my dad about the planes and everything about certain battles and whatnot. So it's just us, and then we got separated from our group, right? So we got separated because we see them, but we're separated, and I'm sitting there and I'm explaining to my dad, about this plane and the engine and whatnot. My wife was asking me questions, and so our back was against the group, so we were just talking, and then when we turned around, there's like 10 or 12 people sitting there watching. They're going like, well, we thought you were more interesting than the group leader was, so we thought we'd follow you. It's
You
like,
never know what you
oh,
can find out just by talking. I mean, about 3 weeks ago, I went to the Frick Museum in Manhattan. And the Frick is a museum created in the Gilded Era home of Frick, the very famous steel magnate who worked with Andrew Carnegie and was once, I think they had an assassination attempt on him. And you you walking literally through the man's bedroom, the library, and I was in the dining room, which is a very, very, very long room filled with Rembrandt and other amazing paintings. And at one point, I'm getting a little tired, and I see some people sitting down on some white sofas. And there's a lot of signs because the original sofas and things are in this room. And I asked a guide, "Is it okay to sit on those? I mean, I just want to take a break." He said, "Yes, but go to the one on the left and look. Go to the end and look at it to the on the panel on the wall. If you see some buttons, those are the buttons that Mister Frick used to use to summons his uh, servants." That was the butler and the chef and all that. I was sitting next to the man's buttons that he used to summons the staff. It was
Wow.
all because I just asked somebody, "Can I sit here?"
I miss going to the museums. That I do. Went to we went to a lot, um, including the Holocaust Museum in Farmington Hills, which I'm sure you've heard of.
I certainly have.
Steven Spielberg helped put that together, and we went there like once a year or whenever they had a display. Uh, which is a real which is a real shame that, to me, that's a huge reason why we are where we're at here in this country. I mean, because we've forgotten our history.
Yeah,
We've chosen to ignore it. Um, I hear a lot of people, they bark at Israel, and it's like, how the hell can you bark when you don't even know what you're barking about? It's like, it just amazes me. It's like, if they just took a little time to educate themselves, to go to a bookstore, or a museum, and actually sit and read or watch or ask questions. We're gonna be talking tonight about writing and reading. And it's like, it's amazing. And I just got done reading an article, how people are saying how, reading is now back in vogue, and I'm like, I wish that would have been like that 3 or 4 years ago, when we maybe
really.
wouldn't be in this mess. If we actually had pick out a history book or two or three, to read about it, maybe we wouldn't be where we're at, where now our very freedoms are threatened, and we have seen censorship, and we are seeing censorship, and we're seeing bannings and removals. We're seeing that, exactly what the Nazis did in Germany. We're seeing it here,
Yeah,
and people here don't realize that. I don't think they realize that, how much in the footsteps of Hitler that our president has taken us. They
that's right.
truly don't. They don't understand it. They just sit there and say, "Well, you're just barking up a wrong tree." And it's like, no. If you go and look and follow his footprint, you'll see that they're doing exactly what that we're doing. We're going through what we're going through is exactly what the German people went through. And at the end of the war, when they were sitting there going like, "I didn't know this was going on," guess what? It wasn't an excuse. You couldn't hide from that.
Nope.
You know what was going on. You just chose not to do anything about it. Um,
One of the best things I ever heard about that was from Arnold Schwarzenegger, actually. He did a speech, and it's available online, where he talks about the Nazis and how his father was one, and how he grew up around them, and how they were the losers in life, how they were broken, sad, pathetic men who, and he's just so honest, and so, because he's a brilliant man, actually. People are surprised because he has, known for the acting and the muscles, but he's a genius.
yeah,
It's why he's so wealthy too. And he talks about this very frankly, and he's talking to everybody who thinks positive about Nazis in a way that you're like, he's a man who actually knew the truth. And it's fascinating. One of the most interesting things he'd ever done.
it's staggering to see. It's staggering to see those people walk down the street. It used to be like they could never do anything like that. They would just there'd be just no way. Now they still wear their masks. They still are cowards. They're still afraid to show their faces, but they're not afraid to walk down the street because their president enabled it.
That's right.
And it's just like the brown shirts, and then it moved on to the SS. I mean, you're watching ICE, and it's just like, that's just another word for SS or Gestapo. I mean, that's all it is. It's nothing more, nothing less. That they did the same thing. They killed people. um, just like ICE did, for nothing, for being a citizen.
Yep.
And
So
yet we refuse to yet we refuse to acknowledge the history because they don't know about the history.
if you don't actually read, you don't actually learn. It's just that
Right.
simple. I've been a reader my whole life, but I've grown up around people who gave up on reading. Oh, I don't want to read. Then you're
Yeah.
gonna then remain ignorant. It's the only thing
Yeah, I
I can
guess it's,
say.
yeah, I guess it's where with reading, it's really cool in one sense, but man, it's to read a book. And like I love it whenever there's like a surge in reading. Most of the time it's actually tied to economics. Like right now, economically speaking, a lot of people are not in a good spot. So going to a bookstore and grabbing a handful of books for a couple of bucks, that's you can be entertained for a very low price. Um, or if you are adventuresome, you can go ahead and go and get books by new authors such as yourself, or new to them, such as yourself or Win Scott. There Amazon. That's still one of the good things about it. Is the fact that you can go there and you can blind buy an author you never heard of, and you can sit there and go like, okay, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to order something new from a fresh voice, and I think that's very exciting. It's the attention span there. Like I know a lot of people too that will get into a book, and I'll sit there and say, "Well, how'd the book end?" And they'll sit there, "I'm still stuck on it," or "I haven't finished it yet," and I'm going like, "Wow, I'm used to sitting down and crushing out a book in a day and a half."
Me,
Um,
when one of the Harry Potters came out, couldn't tell you which. I was teaching karate in the morning. It was a Saturday. I went to right after I was done in the afternoon. I bought it. I went home to my house. I told my late wife, "Don't talk to me until dinner time, and after that, you're not talking to me again." I stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning reading that book. Went to bed, slept in on Sunday. When I got up 10:30 or something, like she said, "How much is left?" I said, "No, I finished it." She was like, "The book was that thick. How did you do that?" I said, "I didn't give up." And then I drove to my father's house a couple of towns away and gave it to him to read.
um, I used to go to I used to go to Barnes and Noble, right? Whenever their new Robert Parker book would come out, new Spencer book. So
Right.
I would go there whenever the new one came out, and I would grab the book. It'd be in hardback. I grab the book, and then they have seats at Barnes and Noble. So you grab that, and then grab a coffee, maybe a cookie, and then I go and I sit down in a chair, and I read the book.
I do the
I read the whole damn thing. I'm a speed reader,
I
and
do
so I read the whole damn thing. And some of the people from Barnes and Noble, they know me, and one girl who was very friendly with me, very nice, and but one day she gave it to me. She goes, "She has this exasperated look on her face." She goes like, "I just want to know one thing." I said, "Sure." It says, "Are you ever going to buy a damn book?" And I go like, "Probably not. But if you really watch my spending habits, you'll see that I'm always buying your magazines. I mean, those I'm taking home with me. I go up there and get Fangoria, or I get Femme Fatale, or I get Sporting News. I was all over that. But
I
paying $32 for a paper for a hardback,
not
that
easy.
probably wasn't going to happen.
Not easy. I get that. That's why my whole family has Kindles.
Right, right. I'm one of those I'm old fashioned though. We're talking about we talk about physical media in the group I'm around, because we do watch it a lot of movies and whatnot. So we're always grabbing the physical media.
Oh,
We
look, I'm the same way. I mean, here's my Talbot Monday that I pulled out that I decide I have to
nice,
wait the nine unload,
nice.
and I've been doing a lot of work with art, and I don't buy art books on there. This is John Martin who created actually the first really uh, cinematic art. Really,
It's
this
a
is
beautiful looking book.
yeah, it is, and that print itself I have on my wall. It's called Manfred on the Jungfrau. It's the story of a poem by Lord Byron called Manfred, about a sorcerer who speaks to the spirits because he lost his love.
Mm,
And he blames himself, and it's all poetry, but it's very powerful, moving stuff. And that was a scene where he's standing on the Jungfrau, this giant mountain, and basically cursing out the world.
mm,
So I have that on the wall. I have another of his in the other room called Manfred and the Witch of the Alps, where he's demanding something from her. And I have another of John Martin's. Oh, it's over there. I just moved it. It's a ruin of a castle in a massive landscape. Uh,
have
John
you
Martin.
have you stood on that mountain and yelled a few times?
Oh no, I'm not a mountain. My brother is the mountain climber. He climbed the mountain that Byron worshipped, Mount Blanc. He climbed that. Uh, I am the we. My mother created two crazy children. I'm the older. I'm the martial artist. I'm still training, still fighting, and still have the injuries. He climbed mountains. He climbed several of the highest mountains in the world. Though I did tell him after he did Mount Blanc, if he decides to do Everest, I'll break both his legs. And he never did.
I was actually I was just I was asking that metaphorically. Have you ever stood outside and screamed off the mountain?
Oh, thousands,
I have. Uh,
thousands. I took it literally, but in the
no,
metaphorical sense, more times than I want to even admit.
yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
just heard you know, because you and I are both in the same tribe. Um, I heard you you know, you mentioned your late wife, and that's the same with me.
Yep.
So that's why when you mentioned this yelling off the mountain, I'm going like, I bet he's done that a few times because I know I do.
Quite true. Though I do have a funny thing that happened at her funeral. Her funeral was one of the only things that I could say I laughed at during a funeral for good reason. When we got to graveside, it was drizzling a little, normal for a funeral, really. And as we got out, it started to pick up. And by the time we got to graveside, it was dumping water on us like buckets.
Mm,
That was her sense of humor. Every single one of us, including the rabbi, was laughing because we knew this was her having a laugh at us. And here's what finally confirmed it. We got back in the cars. We started to drive out of the graveyard.
stopped.
Sun came out.
Yeah.
She, we all went to dinner after that. I brought everybody to a place. Every one of us was laughing after a funeral. Worst day of my life. I was laughing my head off.
Yeah.
Life is weird.
It is, isn't it? So let's talk a little bit about your writing, um, and of course martial arts as well, because I really want to talk to you about that. I just got done reviewing. I don't know. Are you a big martial arts fan as far as movies
Interesting.
go?
Oh God, yes.
Uh, so you know, is this okay? I'm going to put this out here because I said this in my review of this movie, but I'm going to say it here. But I think Jet Li is the best martial artist actor ever.
Oh, he absolutely is. Absolutely one of the greatest. It's look. Bruce Lee will always hold the title as the real founder of these movies, even though he's not even close to the first. But he made
No.
it worldwide with Enter the Dragon, and he changed my world. He changed the Grandmaster Shihan Amorosi, my teacher for 25 years. He changed our world without even a second thought. But Jet Li is probably the most knowledgeable martial artist that's ever been on screen. Even Michael Jai White says that. I mean, the man just knows this, and you have to understand, Jet Li was raised to be a martial artist.
Yeah, he's a real
He
deal.
he is one of the first delegations to come to this country. He met Richard Nixon when he was a child on the child wushu team. There's a picture of him with Richard Nixon in the White House. He's been doing this his whole life. He became a mainstream success when they showed something in Red Square, Tiananmen Square. There was a giant billboard, a massive billboard of Shaolin Temple starring Jet Li, Li instead of Lee, for those who don't know. And mainstream audiences grabbed it and brought it out because before that, it only came from two locations, mostly from Hong Kong, mostly Shaw Brothers, and from Taiwan, which took all the Shaw Brothers people at one point and Jackie Chan. But Jet Li was like the mainstream one from mainland China who became huge. And he just knows it better than almost everybody. I mean, the only man I would say that probably knows it as well, who was also raised that way, was Donnie Yen.
Yeah.
Donnie
Yeah.
Yen's mother is still training in martial arts. I mean, she's in her 80s and she's still training. So
Those two, and and to a slightly lesser extent, Michael Jai White, and Scott Adkins. I love Bruce Lee. I grew up on Bruce Lee like everybody else, but I can acknowledge, I like, as much as I love Bruce Lee. No, Donnie Yen and Jet Li. I'm not even sure about Scott Adkins or Michael Jai White. I mean, I think to me, it's like, well, he's probably about fifth place now, fifth place. But Jet Li, I mean,
Jet
he
Li
can
is on a whole other level. Michael
whole
Jai
other
White
level.
is so knowledgeable in martial arts. Sonny Chiba, he shared a teacher with my teacher. He was a Kyoshin Kai under Oyama, and he played Oyama in the movies. Jackie Chan is probably one of the toughest men in martial arts ever, and knows he was another one born to it. He and Sammo Hung, Yun Bao, and Yun Hua were all raised in martial arts. And there's a movie that everybody should watch if you want to know what that life was like. It's called Painted Faces. It stars, I believe Sammo is in it, but he did produce it and direct it. And Lam Ching Wing plays the guy who raised them, Yun. And the torture scenes you see where they're putting the children through this to learn it. When Jackie Chan saw the movie Painted Faces, because this was his life, he said, "You were pretty gentle compared to what we went through." I mean, when they'd never done a split, they were literally put in a split by Yun. Come here, and they put him in a split and leave him there for 8 hours. Basics. I mean, that's how they were raised. But the 7 kids he raised, every one of them became mainstream Chinese martial arts in some way. And Jackie Chan is one of the biggest stars in history.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. Maybe this is blasphemy, but I've watched a lot of Jackie Chan movies. I mean, I think when he started out, he was much better because he actually did true martial arts. But if you watch Jackie Chan movies now in the last 20, 30 years, there's not really a lot of true martial arts action. I mean, there's a lot of stunts and a lot of rolling around, but as far as technique goes, you really don't ever see him square up against anybody with technique.
He doesn't really want to anymore. He decided somewhere around Snake and in Eagle's Shadow, he decided he was never going to be good enough at that. So he decided he was going to become a comic. And he loved silent film. So if you watch the movie Project A, which is stars all a bunch of his brothers are in it. Yun Bao is his partner / opponent. Sammo Hung is in it and does some of the best martial arts I've ever seen him do.
Sammo Hung is amazing.
Sammo Hung. When you see a man that looks like Fat Buddha be able to do a backflip into a split and then pop right back up, you know you're watching something special. And Yun Hua plays a pirate king who has a big fight scene with them too. These guys all are able to do things that you don't see normally. And Jackie Chan just decided, you know what? If I can't be the best martial artist on screen, I'm going to be the funniest and most unusual. So like Rumble in the Bronx, not a good movie. Not a good movie. Awful movie. But his fight scene with the gang is one of the funniest fight scenes I have ever seen in my life. I
Yeah.
cannot stop watching his fight scene with that gang.
His fight scenes are they're fun to watch for that. You watch them and it's like, you're watching it's just comedy on wheels.
Right.
And every once in a while, you sort of just sit there and wish that he would just square up just once, like, all right, let's go. But he puts over a lot of people too.
Oh yeah, his
Um,
friends are all his stuntmen. Uh, he had a special anniversary for 30 years in his stunt team. Men who were retired were coming back to pay tribute to him. I mean, he takes good care of his people, and he lets them shine. There's one Chinese man whose name just escapes me. He has perfect kicks. He literally will stand on one foot and keep kicking, and 90-degree angles and everything. He'll
is
let
that
that
Benny
guy
the Jet?
shine. What's
Is
that?
that Benny the Jet?
No, Benny the Jet doesn't really do
He's
that.
got
Benny the Jet is the most real thing he ever fought. Benny the Jet actually, my doctor actually knew him and trained with him. Benny was 100-0 in terms of winning fighting. That man was one of the most deadly opponents you could ever fight.
Yeah.
Mm.
His feet are yeah.
And his
Um
hands, his back
his
fist
hands too.
brutal.
Yeah.
He still
Oh
bleeds.
man, I see Benny the Jet. I'm like, man, that guy he's lethal.
Yes,
Lethal.
he used to take down
Um,
guys twice his size without any problem.
no. Of course, you got to talk about the ladies. Michelle Yao still amazing. Pushing 70, and she still kicks ass.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Cynthia Rothrock too,
she still could do the scorpion kick,
and
and she
still
did it.
perfectly.
And yeah, and she did it. We had friends. We're friends of Alexander Niski and Joe Cornette, and they casted her in this Western movie called "Taken from Rio Bravo," and she had a cameo in it. And in it, she's fighting, and she has all this Western gear on, a long dress. She still scorpion kicks. I'm like, just like I'm going, I watch it and going, oh hell no. And then the other actor that I really just came hooked on big time is Wu Jing
Oh,
or Jing Wu. Jack, they call him Jackie Wu, but Jing Wu, who was
yes,
in oh my gosh.
amazing.
That fight with Jet Li in Killzone, or that was Donnie Yen. Donnie
Donnie Yen.
Yen and Kill
Donnie,
and
he also
oh,
did. Donnie Yen also did an amazing fight with him in Once Upon a Time in China Part Two.
yes.
He had one of the best fights, and Donnie Yen has a scene in that's still. I've trained with weapons, and he does a bow kata with a wet towel that he's stretched out, and he does it, and he ends it with his hand like this, and the towel collapses. He's spinning it so fast that it looks solid. That's a level of talent that I just always found amusing.
I saw him. I saw the one movie he did. One of my favorite top 10 for sure. He did Flashpoint. Donnie Yen did Flashpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, that last fight is brutal. I mean, there's no stuntmen here. I mean, there's so many, and they kept so many shots of that final fight, and you're seeing his head hit the back of hit the railing, and you're sitting there wondering how the hell is he alive? There's no stuntman. There's no cushion here.
No, it's just how they
They
do
were
it.
fighting.
Well,
That's a
you got to understand that in China, you got to be able to stand up. You can't just use that. I mean, go back to the Shaw Brothers days. There were a bunch of actors who, part of the Venom mob, they're called, who grew up
yes.
together. Lu Fang, Philip Kwok, and Chang Sheng all got known to Shaw Brothers by training together in the park. So if you go back and watch scenes that they're in, you get to see them because they were able to work together, actually hitting each other and missing each other. And one of their best fight scenes I've ever seen in my life to this day is in Brave Archer 3, which has also some of the other Venoms like Sun Chien, who was a Hapkido guy from Taekwondo, better known as the Scorpion in Five Deadly Venoms. It had who else? It had all of these guys, and they were oh, it had Lo Mang, who was Golden Arms and the Toad in those in Kid with the Golden Arm and Five Deadly Venoms. Great physique, and he still has it. All of these guys trained together, and They did 8 fight scenes at the same time. And one of the big things that you can see is Chang Sheng and Lu Fang were very, very close friends. So what they used to do, and they did it specifically in this movie, is Chang Sheng will jump between Lu Fang and his opponent, and they'll switch opponents as they're fighting without a pause. And they do it so cleanly, and the way they move. These are guys who were beating the hell out of each other,
Yeah.
and they still kept going. And I actually saw recently a picture of Lu Feng and Philip Kwok, who were they're still out there in their 80s. They looked great, and they were just smiling into the camera. They've been friends since the 70s, maybe
That's
the
awesome.
60s. I mean, I was so happy to see that.
Uh, our guest for tomorrow has just dropped by. Miss Danielle, Sun B. See, I had another name. I'm gonna be like Sun. I must see Sun By or Sun B. I'm gonna learn that one too tomorrow. And she is a horror editor, so which
Wow.
is a good thing. Good thing for us to get. We could talk martial arts all night.
Yeah. Oh,
But I definitely
I
want to
could
talk.
talk
I
martial
definitely
arts for years.
and our good friend Tom is here, and he is actually splitting time with us. Thank you so much. He's hanging out with both us here and with Lady Sasha, and Danielle's waving at us. Hi, Danielle. She'll be here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and I cannot wait to talk horror editing with her. But I think we should take this as we take this as a sign and go
It's
back
an
to our
omen that we
writing.
better move
It's an
on.
omen.
Yeah.
Yes, because if you like, the shadow knows that in our hearts right now is martial arts, but we need to
Oh,
go back to
to the writing
we need to
side.
go. Yeah. So one of the things I was commenting about before you got here, I was talking about the new movie Frankenstein, The Bride, and how it's a good movie. I guess I mean I'm hearing it's a good movie, but it's no one's watching it. And to me, it's just like I don't understand sometimes how movies get made. Like what possessed you to think that anybody wanted to see a bride, the Frankenstein? No one talks about it. Like no one's sitting there going like, I really wish we see that. Um, I don't know what it is. It's sometimes people just I don't know if it's a gamble, it's a calculated gamble. But I thought that riding in the footsteps of another rider, their property, I felt in a way it's more difficult to follow in somebody's footprints to write it. Like it's you've written, I know you've written about the Falcon. You've had your own Frankenstein trilogy. And you've written with familiar characters as well as your own original creations. But let me ask you this, Frank: what is harder for you as a writer, because you do write about other IPs? What's more challenging, writing your own or following the steps of an established character, and why?
Oh, following the steps of an established character, but the Falcon character actually is mine. That's actually written in the 1750s. His real name is Falconer, but everybody calls him the Falcon.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I've written a bunch of public domain IPs, and I always struggled more. Uh, the Frankenstein novels you mentioned are actually even more difficult because it's not Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. This Frankenstein is a version from France created by Jean Claude Carrière, who was an Academy Award winning screenwriter who in the 50s wrote Pulp before he became a big time screenwriter. And he wrote a bunch of Frankenstein novels at, in which the character is known as Garul. And Garul is a beast, a monster. He has razor sharp teeth, and he is brutal and murderous, and there's no redeeming values in this character. He doesn't speak. He is just a force of nature that moves through the stories. And Garul is even harder to create because I couldn't read him until after I started writing him because they weren't translated into English. I had to
Oh,
get summaries from Jean-Marc Lefisier of what he was like and then go on my own. So I was doubly. The third book, I'd read several of the books, so that made it even harder. But
um,
writing my own, I'm just in a zone. I go.
now, are you able to, even though since it's a public domain character, so you were able to take more license with that than you would, say, like a Sherlock Holmes or a Mary Shelley of Frankenstein. You would have to be more you have to be more with the rules, with like can't do this, can't do that. But your character, since it's about public domain character, you basically can create anything that you can create, right?
Yes. When I'm writing a
Wow.
public domain pulp character, I can have a little license, but not much because you got to
Oh,
stick to what the character is. I wrote
right.
a bunch of Secret Agent X's for Airship 27, and I got a Bible on how the character was, and I'd read several of the stories before they were republished and reprinted by Altus Press. And I learned a little bit about the character, but I had to sort of stick to it. But I could still take it my own way. And one of the ways I tell people that I do it is if the character has a like Secret Agent X has a very big cast, I find a way to eliminate half the cast without destroying the character because I don't want to have to write 20 other people in the story. I want to write a few. So I cut it down a little in a way that's realistic. And
Maybe
I do
take the
that,
10 most popular characters and then
or
okay,
just
that
write
makes
it in a
sense.
way that none of them are around. I wrote a character, Richard Knight, who's like an airship detective kind of character you could see in the dark. And I wrote it in a way that he was involved in a whole adventure all on his own on a ship and all out into sea and all sorts of stuff like that. So he had no involvement with the rest of his cast. It was just my conceit on how to make things easier on myself without messing with it.
Danielle mentions work smarter, not harder.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she's right. She's Danielle. You're 100% right. You gotta know your strengths when it comes to writing somebody else's character. And so if a
Hmm.
character has, you know, 20 characters that are around them at different times, you you have to say, am I able to do this justice? Oh, okay, maybe I can cut it down to 2 or 3. Then I'm fine. Then I can give you a story worth reading.
Sometimes they did that with the Doc Savage books. I noticed toward the end of the run. It got to be where it was just Doc, and a lot of times it was just Doc and Ham and Monk.
Right.
The rest of the Fabulous Five wasn't in it. They were on the sidelines.
Well, it's easier for a writer to write. Even Lester Dent, who created all those characters, was able to say at times, you know what? I can't deal with this. I don't have time to find a spot for them, and I can't keep getting them kidnapped.
Right. That's right. That's right. We have a question from Tom Baker, a friend of the show. He's got one for you. He heard us talking movies. He says, "What's your favorite Hammer film?"
Oh, that's an easy one for me. The Devil Rides Out. I am a maniacal fan of Dennis Wheatley, and the idea of seeing The Devil Rides Out with Christopher Lee, who knew Dennis Wheatley and was a fan of the work, I'm an absolute maniac over it, and all my friends in the pulp community have heard me talking about it ad nauseum about how much I love Dennis Wheatley and how I collect his occult work. So always has been that. Though my late wife actually sat through it with me because it was on TV once and she wasn't a big fan, but she looked at it and she said, you really love this movie, don't you? It's like, yes, don't talk. That's what I said to her. Yes, don't talk.
In case everybody forgets what mine was, it would be the Vampire Lovers, of course.
I've written the Karnsteins, so I'm a fan of them. My second place, I can give you that too, is another obscure one, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, the Hammer Shaw Brothers Kung Fu movie with Peter
Nice.
Cushing and David Chang.
It was
David
so
Chang.
weird. It's so weird what it turned into you pop up a Hammer movie and you see Peter Cushing and he's the damn good guy. He's playing Val Helsing. Like wasn't it? Didn't he blow up? Didn't he guy blow up
Alderaan.
Alderaan?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, there he is now. He's killing Dracula
all the time. And he was
uh,
a quarter of Dracula's size, and he threw himself at him like they were equals.
right, right. Yeah, that made me smile to see Peter Cushing out there, the daring dude. It's like, man, um, but I gotta watch more Hammer. It's very hard to find the way I look for media. I just I go thrift stores and libraries and whatnot, so it's very hard to find movies that way. But that's the best way I could do it. But
You can
once
see
in a
over my
while,
shoulder how I do it. You can see
uh,
over my shoulder how I do it here.
oh, there's the stacks. Yes,
Stacks and stacks. There's more over there and over there and over there. And
I
I'm a
had a
crazy
closet.
person.
I have a closet behind me, and I always put my movies in there. And once in a while, someone will sit there and say, show us your closet." And I'm like, "Man, oh, do I have to do this? Do I? Yeah, show us your closet." And so I go over there, and this just getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And then one day I was talking to my sister about a couple of months ago, and it went the whole closet just went poof. It took me 2 hours to clean it up, to
That's what
organize
happens
it.
periodically to that pile. Is my cat gets bored and decides to see what he can see, and all of a sudden I hear crash.
Uh, so tell me a little bit about your influences. I mean, what influenced you to become a writer? Obviously, you love pulp novels as much as I did, and probably cut your teeth as much as I did too. Because that was my first introduction into reading, into horror and the science fiction, were the Doc and the Shadow and the Avenger. And the only one I did not read when I was younger, and then I found out about him later. I was surprised because I thought it was a modern interpretation of a character, of an era. But I didn't know about the Spider until I was much older. But I did read Doc and the Avenger and the Shadow and of course the other writer, the other characters. What was your influences? What were your favorite characters that
Uh,
got you going?
the characters that got me going were the Shadow. I grew up on the radio show. My family liked to listen to it, and then when I found the books, I started reading them. Um, I was a big fan growing up of Robert E. Howard, but more specific than his Solomon Kane or his Colin Conan is I liked his Steve Harrison stories a lot, the Chinatown stories that he wrote, which was always a running joke between me and several friends who don't like them. Sherlock Holmes, Dennis Wheatley, Philip Jose Farmer, who I'd read Doc Savage on and off, but never followed it too deeply, but it was in every library. But then a friend of mine gave me a copy of Tarzan Alive and Doc Savage's Apocalyptic Life. And that was one of those life changing moments where I just couldn't get enough of it. I probably read Doc Savage 30 times in a month just because I couldn't get enough of the stories and the ideas.
Fantastic.
And I became a major fan of that and a fan of Philip Jose Farmer, who I got to meet once. I was glad to meet him once. And it spread out that way. I would pick up things like I found, I think it was Bantam produced like 3 or 4 of the Spiders. So I read a few Spiders, Prince of Swindlers, I think, no, Prince of it was one where everything's exploding. I can't. They all were.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it when I read the Spider. Like I thought it was contemporary because of
Yeah,
the
they
violence.
it was sold right next to the executioners and the destroyers and the
Mhm.
butchers and all that. It was right in that. And the one that got me, the one I liked the best, there was two of them with a villain called the Fly. Uh,
Of course.
yes, and um, then like about a year after I read the Fly stories, maybe it was longer. Will Murray wrote an article about that. That was just one of the funniest articles about how it was always done as a trick and why these spider novels are so infuriating at times. Will's a good guy, but knows more than anybody. I mean, just an amazing human being. I always liked him. So those were my influences, but I was also a big reader into um, Jack London more than any of them. I was a big reader of Jack London. I loved his work. Um, Alexander Dumas, a lot of that, especially the Three and the Four Musketeers and the following stories. Um, and then it was just
I
anything.
love the version of the Count of Monte Cristo they did with Jim Caviezel.
That
Love
was a
that
good
movie
version.
so much, so
I,
much. I love that version so much.
first version I saw was with Richard Chamberlain on TV.
Yeah, he was. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
I love
that
Richard
probably wouldn't have been
Chamberlain,
the
but that
part
was
for him. He was good in Shogun, but yeah, that probably would have been out of his range a little bit.
well, he was magnificent as Aramis. He was one of the best Aramises I've ever seen. He just delivered the lines as Aramis so perfectly. That was the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers. The casting in every single part of that movie was just amazing.
Now, to me, see, I was mentioning this too before you got here. I think certain characters, like here we are talking about the Bride of Frankenstein and how I'm sure if you and I asked 100 people, would you want to see it? Would you like to see a Bride of Frankenstein on the screen? Nobody would sit there and say, yeah. But but that's the same thing. It seems like they always recycle these certain characters over and over and over, and no one's asking for them. And then they act all surprised when the movie bombs or the TV show bombs. But I feel like there's certain characters that if you announce that you're going to do it, people will just gravitate to that character. And I think part of the reason why, like to me, the most famous one would probably be Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
And one of the things is, and again with the Three Musketeers is another one. What makes those characters stand out and what people really want to see them is because they've always had excellent casts. I mean, you
Yes.
go back you go back to Three Musketeers. I mean, all the way through, they've always had top-notch casts. I love the Man in the Iron Mask. I love that version.
Yes.
I just absolutely rules. You look at Sherlock Holmes. Everybody who's ever stepped in Sherlock Holmes's shoes has nailed it. I cannot think of a single movie of a Sherlock Holmes where I sit there and said, "Yeah, that blew."
The Russian Sherlock Holmes series.
Really?
It's on YouTube for those of you who've never seen it before. I have this on DVD. This is done with such love of the material
Oh,
that it's a genuine joy. Vasily Litvinov plays the part. He's very different voice. He's very deep, gravelly voice, but he plays it with such love for the material that it's. He ended up getting an MBE from the Queen because he was
really?
so good at it. And the Russian embassy in London has a Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson that has Vitaly Solomon and Vasily Litvinov, who played Watson and Holmes. There's a statue of them. You can see it online. That's the only way I've seen it. And there's even pictures of Litvinov sitting between them. One of them is him in the statue. I mean, you have the people that do something like the Three Musketeers, with the exception of that steampunk version, or Sherlock Holmes, they start with okay, this story is easy. Now let's find the perfect people. So I always use the
Yeah.
Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers as parts. You had, for the Three Musketeers, you had Oliver Reed, who was Athos in real life.
Yeah. No,
I
no
mean,
doubt about that.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, you had you had Michael York, who was so magnificent as D'Artagnan. He was able to play the part with such enjoyment and energy. You had Raquel Welch, who was so
Stunning.
stunningly gorgeous, and they could even add something, a little bit of clumsiness to make it more fun. But best of all of them, and believe me, I love everybody in it. Faye Dunaway as Milady, the only one I've
Yeah.
ever seen that could top Lana Turner. So twisted, evil, and so beautiful that it was moving to watch her. And then, of
Yeah.
course, you had Christopher Lee as Rochefort, my favorite character in the movie. Even Charlton Heston as Richelieu. He
Yeah, he did.
actually asked if he could use a real Richelieu line. He turns to D'Artagnan at one point and says, I have no enemies. France has enemies.
Mm.
I mean, he quoted Richelieu, and also it was probably one of his best performances because he played it down. He didn't.
He played. He also played Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, he did.
And Christopher of Blood. I was blown away. I was sitting there going like, I'm thinking for the first time I'm going to watch a Sherlock Holmes movie that's not going to hit with me, but he was good, real good.
Christopher Lee was an amazing human being. Christopher Lee.
Uh, oh, that was Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston also.
He played Holmes.
He played Christopher Lee played him, but Christopher Lee also played Mycroft.
Yes. Man, Mycroft always got the shaft.
Well,
I want to say hello to our good friend John from Doomsday Crypt. He is a friend of the show, and he does a lot of interviews, and he also works a lot of conventions. Magnificent guy, good friend. Glad you're here. Did I miss over? Let's see. Tom is sitting there saying, you could tell Frank is a happy man. I believe that Frank definitely has his moments for sure. And I'm glad this is Danielle's first time with us. She'll be here tomorrow, of course. And I'm glad you're enjoying the chat. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I'm having a great time.
I'm glad. Did I ask you this already? Did you get a chance to see the interview we did with Win?
Yes, I did. I absolutely saw that.
Yeah.
I've known Win. I've known Win for so many years. It's ridiculous. We knew each other back in the old Yahoo Groups days.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when we met online entirely. And then one of the Pulp Fests, I came in and we met there, and we've been connected since. He's an amazing human being and one of my very dear friends, and he's such a good person. Genuine.
It took me so long to finally approach him, because I always thought that he would just shoot me down, if I asked him to come on the show. I always thought, for some reason, I got it in my head like he's not gonna want to do what I'm doing here. And then I finally said, would you consider it? And he goes, yeah. And then we had something came up, and then we had to push it back a minute. And then he came on, and I just had an absolute blast with him, just like we're doing here tonight. What is your favorite character to write? I mean, of all the characters, both original and others, but who's your favorite to write for? Who's the easiest that just flows off the keyboard?
Well, that would be the new character I created with Belanger Books, the Falcon. He's a naval hero who becomes a spy in the 1750s. They're very much done in an almost 1750s version of James Bond, as Brian Belanger told me. I've written 2 of them. They go out of me fast, and I sat back. I have ideas for like 5 or 6 of them. The character is he's got a lot of the characteristics of the great naval heroes from fiction and real life. But his big thing is that you find out that he has this very twisted background. He was in the Navy when he was 6. He killed his first man at 6. Uh, he's been traveling the world his entire life, and it gave me a chance to have a lot of fun with history. And one of the funny things is I got to use 3 characters that nobody uses in fiction anymore. They were known as the 3 muses. They were these 3 gorgeous courtesans who every one of them got involved with very famous men. And they each played a part in the story in a very amusing way. In fact, one of the funny things that he does when he wants to get the more puritanical people out of his way, he'll start telling stories about these women. And you always come in at like the end part when he says the final line that has everybody laughing and the people turn white that shouldn't, when they hear what he's talking about. There's a lot of action in it because of my martial art background. There's always a lot of fighting in that. And it was a lot of spy action. So I had a lot of fun with that. I've written 2. The first one is Let Loose the Falcon, which involves an attempt on George II and his son Frederick. And the second one is a more internal story set with clubs and all of that. One of the stories that comes in, I'm using the real version of the Hellfire Club. Created by Francis Dashwood. I have them as actual characters and what happened at these real stories. And one of the recurring characters is the Falconer's cousin, who is the Earl of Sandwich, best known as the creator of the sandwich, so he could hold the sandwich in one hand and his cards in the other.
And thank God for that. Where would we be without the Earl of Sandwich?
That's it. And his ancestor, who lives in England, created a bunch of restaurants called the Earl of Sandwich, which sell sandwiches. They're at Disney. They don't know the roots of that one, I'm thinking. So yeah, that's my character.
Let me bounce back to the chat here. Let's see. Thank you so much, Danielle, showing us hearts, and John saying thanks for the kind words. Always, man.
Thank you, Danielle.
John. Yeah, and Tom. See, Danny says my daughter is watching. Is calling. Okay, we'll still be here. See, Tom says I love the Quartermass, the Nigel Creel stories. What are your favorite? What's your opinion about the Quartermass? And the Nightingale stories. The movie. I guess
Quatermass is a great character. Quatermass was really the first science fiction horror I ever saw, thanks to Hammer. I'm 60. I'm happy I don't look it, but I am 60 years old, and I grew up on television, and I learned a lot from watching things because I was an insomniac, watching midnight movies and reading Famous Monsters of Filmland and all of these things to learn about movies, which also brings to a funny little story. The second James Bond movie I ever saw was The Spy Who Loved Me. And Carolyn Monroe is in it, and absolutely one of the most gorgeous women of her time. Definitely. And she was beautiful in that movie. She was the helicopter pilot. And we're driving home, and my mother and father are in the front seat talking about the movie. And my mother says, I wonder who played the helicopter pilot. She was so beautiful. And I think this was like 76, so I was 10 years old. And I said, Carolyn Monroe. And they were at a stop sign. They both turned around like, what? Like, where did you get that? It's like, she's in my movie magazine. Like, no, she's not. You're just making this up. And I said, I am. And I'm insisting. And finally, I said, you know what? I did what all 10-year-old boys did back then. I said, I'll bet you. And I sent to my name. But my mother said, fine. If I lose, I have to make you bed for a month. If not, I don't know what chore she wanted me to do. The whole family marches up to my completely messy room. I dig around for 30 seconds and I hand them a Famous Monsters of Filmland with Carolyn Monroe on the cover from Golden Voyage of Sinbad. I turn it, and there's a picture of her winking to the camera as the helicopter pilot. My father turns to my mom and said, "You really can't argue with this kid on this." I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to one day telling her that story. Carolyn Monroe, friend of mine, Mark Holmes, knows her.
Okay, let me ask you. Now it's probably biased, but I'm still going to ask you though. All right, so this is one for the books. What's your favorite Bond girl?
Favorite Bond girl? That's pretty hard, but there's a
It
few.
is hard.
There's Ursula Andress. How could I not? Um, Jane Seymour. Oh my God, she was
Yeah,
gorgeous.
she was
She
gorgeous.
was stunningly gorgeous. Monica Bellucci, who recently
Yeah.
appeared.
Uh-uh.
Always had a crush on her since before I even heard her speak English. There are so many beautiful women in those movies that it was hard. Um, Britt Eklund.
But excellent. Yeah.
Britt
She's
Eklund,
another thing.
stunningly beautiful woman, way into her 60s. Uh, that's a tough one. Uh,
I went with Sophie Marceau.
I can't argue with that either. I mean, she was stunning.
Yeah. Oh
Look,
my gosh.
she's still
Don't,
beautiful. I
don't,
saw.
don't, the only time you booed James Bond, I never missed. Well, damn it, James, you should have missed this time.
Really, the same with Xenia Onatop. It's like, oh,
Oh, Famke Janssen. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like, I actually
But she was, yeah, she
groaned.
was evil though.
She was stunning, and I actually groaned. And my wife gave me one of these in the ribs on that one. She's like, "Shut up,
Yeah.
you."
Yeah. The names are hilarious.
Oh, that Ian Fleming.
It's part of the charm of a James Bond movie, though they did get away from that from toward the end. I mean, all the names, they're always
Holly Goodhead.
innuation, but they did sort of get away with that toward the end. Once they got James Bond, I think maybe probably with Timothy Dalton after his run, I think
Yeah,
all the names became more grounded, more serious.
yeah. I
Let's see.
will always have Holly Goodhead and Pussy Galore.
Tom saying for me, it's not Grace Jones. Man, I don't know about that, Tom. Grace,
She was very good
she
in that
was
movie.
she was very good in that movie.
It really
Yeah,
was.
I really like, and she came back to help James too. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Um,
And she was quite a
that's
character at her time.
yes,
I
Grace
liked
Jones
her
was.
in Conan the Destroyer too.
That's right. She really, yes,
She was
yes.
very good in that.
And you know who? I found out that I didn't know this till later that I found out that Sandahl Bergman, who had done Berndal, who had done Conan,
Mhm.
she did Xanadu.
I only found that out like a few years ago, but yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't affect me. But I do know there was a funny moment where she appeared dancing on the Oscars, and it said Sandahl Goodman from Bergman from Conan, and my mother, who had seen Conan and didn't love it, but she did see it, she said, "Who was she?" I was like, "She was Valeria. She was the main character." It's like, well, how would I know that? They all had they had blonde hair. That's all I remember seeing. It's like, well, you weren't looking where we were looking.
So watching having a background in science fiction and action and adventure, I mean to me it's like that's got to be just such rich creative grounds for you to sit there and like to sit there and write, to have that fertile mind with all these different characters. I mean, a lot of times, you some people just write that, the narrowness, I can only go this far. But I love the fact of the idea that, and if you're asking to the chat, you mentioned the Falcon being 6 years old on a ship. Yes, that is actually factually correct.
Yes,
Historically correct. That is, yep.
And it also meant that he saw people dying in front of him at 6.
Yep.
And the profound change to somebody's character at that age. But I can tell you one of my biggest thing, my parents were very big movie watchers. So they were always showing me movies that probably weren't particularly appropriate for me. But I got to see a lot of old crime movies from the 30s and the 40s. And I was affected by that even more so than horror and science fiction, because to me, I grew up thinking about, about Rico from Little Caesar, uh, the Scarface from the original, not the Al Pacino, the one, the later that was based on
I
Al
can't,
Capone. Uh,
that Al Pacino one, just I just no, just no.
no, I get why people like it. It did have some great dialogue, and it did show a segment of the world at that time, but it wasn't
That
really.
accent, that accent just took me
Actually,
out of that.
well, I have a funny thing about that. I was talking to a friend of mine about that movie and Carlito's Way, and my friend was from Peru, and he said I can't watch those movies when he speaks Spanish. I said why? He says he speaks Spanish with a bad Italian accent, and I just fell over laughing because how would I know something like that?
Uh, let's see. Yeah, I love the crimes. I love the crime dramas too. I tell you what really surprised me. Our good friend Steve and his running partner Lucas Boy is here.
Welcome, Stephen Lucas.
Lucas Boy is he's probably my favorite dog for sure. He says gumshoe crime shows. I grew up watching them. Yeah. In fact, I just got done putting one out for RetroTube, Steve. I covered an episode of Dangerous Assignment
Ooh, good
with,
one.
with Brian Dunleavy. I was like,
I
oh
love Brian Dunleavy. He's in one of my
yeah,
favorite movies. He played the prime part, one of the prime parts in The Glass Key.
that's
And
right.
I love that's my favorite Dashiell Hammett of all time, even though I do love the Thin Man movies and the Maltese Falcon. The Glass Key has always been my favorite Dashiell Hammett story of all time. And um, he was so effective at it in that part that no version will ever read it, and I have every version of it. I collected the all the versions from before and after because it's my favorite story from Dash
Oh
Cat.
man, I love the Maltese Falcon.
It's
I think Bogey did
a great
he
story.
did a great job.
Oh,
And
the
so
dialogue
ahead
in
of
that
his
movie was perfect. That was some
yeah,
of the most
so ahead of his
perfect
time.
dialogue. Are you kidding? Casper Goodman's every line was something to quote again. I love a man
Now,
who could drink.
now have you know in your writing, have you tried to write scripts? Have you done anything like that?
I never really tried that because I don't really write in a very. Well, there's really two types of writers in this world, and I can use Win as one of them. Win and I have been running jokes about that for probably 20 years. There are the plotters, the people who outline every detail of their story and do it, and that's wonderful and successful. Some of the best writers on earth have done it that way, and some of the most successful. And then there's the pantsers, people who write by the seat of their pants, like Stephen King and me. We have the story concept, the problem. We have the characters and we have the setting, and then it all goes out there. And it becomes a fugue state where I'm like this in front of the keyboard, and then I end up doing this. What the hell just happened? I didn't even know I wrote that. It's like I don't know how it went there. And then all of a sudden, it used to be a running joke with my wife. I'd just stop and go, what the hell did I just write?
Mm.
And she would say, I hope you're not talking to me because I'm not reading it.
Was she your basically your alpha reader, your beta reader, you know, test reader,
Sometimes I didn't
whatever,
know
whatever.
when it was non-horror, yes. But
Yeah.
when she read my first Frankenstein novel, she just said, "This is the most violent horror thing I've ever read. Why did you do this?" I said, "That's actually what the character's like." She said, "Well, I'm not reading any more of it." So when I wrote that, 3 Frankensteins, and 3 Napoleon Vampire Slayer stories, she said,
Well, you
but when
got
I wrote,
Napoleon as a vampire hunter.
actually, I have the people working for Napoleon as vampire hunters, and it started before he became famous. The first story is called Napoleon's Vampire Hunters. It uses Paul Faval characters, his vampire stories. He was a very famous writer. He created really the first crime syndicate story in the Blackcoats. The first real gangster stories about a group of organized criminals trying to take over the gangs of the world and make everybody's lives horrible. And
I gotta tell you I gotta after we're done, I gotta send you a friend of mine who wrote a series. I wish he'd pick it back up. He wrote a series called The President's Vampire.
oh, I love that.
Oh, it's awesome. it's
Reminds me of the
it's
most demented movie of all time, The President's Analyst.
uh, I
Lee Co- James Coburn.
yeah, I've not seen that.
It
What-
is it is one of the funniest, strangest, craziest, most quotable movies you'll ever see. He's a psychotherapist who becomes the analyst of the president. And there are such obvious, they're making fun of the FBI, they call them the FBR, the CIA, which is this, they keep using these acronyms to mess with them. And
Right.
the villains of the story, I'm not saying who the villains are, but when you find out who the real villains are, you'll pass out laughing. It is one of the funniest, strangest, craziest movies of all times, and James Coburn was obviously having a blast doing it. It didn't do well in the box office, but it's a cult sensation. But it's insane. I will
can't
tell
really
you,
see.
William Conrad is in it. You know, the voice of
Okay.
Kit, and he plays a New Jersey liberal who's a gun owner. And he has this wonderful scene with his son. It's very minor, so I don't mind saying it, where his son said, "Dad, you left this gun in the car. Do you want it?" He said, "This is the car gun, not the inside gun." You know, he's like, "No, that's my car gun. Put it back in the car." I
Oh
mean,
my God.
one of the most demented movies I've ever seen, but it's so recommended for laughs.
I'll have to keep that up. I'll have to put that on my watch list.
You'll laugh.
Let me slide back to the chat real quick. Danielle came back, so welcome back, Danielle.
Welcome back, Danielle.
And let's see. One of my favorite actors is Scott Brady. Yeah, he did a lot of he did a lot of westerns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
And he
he did.
died in a very weird way. Yeah, there's been some people that have died weirdly.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
I actually spent some
Jeff
time with
Chandler. I was reading about him. Oh,
That's
that
weird.
was bizarre.
That
That
was
was
very
really
bizarre.
bizarre.
Well, there's a book out by Kenneth Anger, the alternative filmmaker, who I don't recommend his movies unless you really want to be confused. But they're on YouTube. He was a avant-garde filmmaker and very crazy. He did 2 books called Hollywood Babylon and Hollywood Babylon 2, where he writes about strange deaths that most people never heard of. The first one starts at the silent era, like about the woman who threw herself off the Hollywood sign to kill herself, and that's all she's known for. And the Jeff Chandler section, I literally dropped the book when I read that. This is pre-internet, obviously. It's a book I don't recommend buying a copy of it, except buy it used. Let somebody who paid for it give it to you that way, because it's too weird to be bought that way.
How are online books? What do you like? I mean, I know you mentioned you do the Kindle, and you have your own physical collection. But I mean, what do you think of Kindle books? I mean, I know it's a necessity for now, But is this something that, as a writer, do you like it or not?
I'm not especially a fan of it from a writer's
Yeah.
point of view because there's literally it steals the money out of the hands of all of us. And there is a problem with it is that people can return Kindles store books that they buy in a certain length of time and get back their
Okay.
money. Yeah, I learned that from Jean-Marc Leffissier and Randy Leffissier, who own Black Coat Press, have told me about it, and they lose money from that.
How the hell can you get a refund off a digital copy?
I don't know. I don't know how it's done. I've never done it. I wouldn't even consider doing it.
Wow.
I consider that as bad as literally going to a bookstore and just stealing it off the shelf. Uh, the I don't ever want to do something like that, and I want to even support. I'll give you an example of physical copy I support. This is a reprint of a Penny Dreadful of a dime store called King Brady, and this person is reprinting them. He reprinted 5 of them, and you could see by the covers they're very old-fashioned styled. I bought the physical copies personally from the owner. I don't know if it's available on Amazon. I don't care. By buying it from the guy who's created this Tales of Murder publishing house, I'm able to give him the money directly and he can get a bigger percentage just as a way of saying thank you for trying to bring back the dime novels. Just give me a reprint of something I've always wanted to read. So the King Brady and Son stories are there. I have here, I have a lot of them. This is the Nyctalope. This is a French character, a pre-pulp hero who is published by Black Coat Press. I keep copies of this. I buy every one. There's a new one coming out. That character was from to like the 50, like the turn of the century to like the 50s. I buy those. I mean, I prefer the physical copy when I can do something to help. I use this, the Kindle, for the things that I just want to read that I don't want to spend my
Right.
time looking for the copies or something. If I just want to read a quick Sherlock Holmes short story by somebody, I'll buy a copy on Kindle. If there's something I desperately need and it's only available on Kindle, okay, what can I do?
Right.
These books I buy. These are some of my art books. I'm doing a lot of work with art. This is a surrealist book. Really beautiful copies in here of art.
Is print books still, like, we're talking about physical media, and we're always saying how the DVDs and Blu-rays are slowly fading. They're slowly being phased out. Is that the same thing with books? Are they being phased out in terms of digital?
I
I
hope
don't
not.
see it myself.
I don't think so. I think it's coming
Yeah.
back from what I hear. I have decided that when I can buy a physical copy, like I was doing some martial arts research, so I bought this book on swords, uh, and it's available at half the price on Kindle. But I'd rather buy that just so that I have
Right.
a physical copy. Plus, it gives a little more money. However, there was a bunch of Talbot Mundy stories that I wanted to read, and the physical copies were ridiculously priced, so I bought a
Mm.
collection of them inexpensively. They do that; they'll release turn of the century stuff like Nick Carter. I have about 30 physical copies and about 200 electronic copies. We can with this, but I don't really believe that if I can get a physical copy, I'm helping somebody else. I feel better about it, at least a little.
Right. Um, I guess I'll ask you one last question. You can go ahead and answer this one. What's on your plate now to the end of 2026? What do you got coming out, or have been released, or coming out, or works in progress?
I have the second Falconer story. Um, is just I just handed in the edited copy back to my publishers, Belanger Books. Um, Brian and Derek Belanger, who created this, do a lot of Sherlock Holmes work and all that. And I've become close to these guys. They're really great human beings. And they, one of the things I love about, especially the two of them, is they are 100% honest with what works and what doesn't work. And it's what they asked me to rewrite. I love having editors that are tough on me. Makes me feel like, okay, now I know I'm not going to make mistakes that people are going to hit me on. So I have that coming out sometime this year. I've written a bunch of articles on art, on Goya and his use of fear, and some other articles like that. And I've written some theological based articles on horror movies. I had this big run of these movies, and they're all out there, and we'll see who gets to take up. I have the start of the third Falconer, but I promised Brian and Derek I wouldn't start it till much later in the year because they can't do anything with it until then anyway. Right. And I have an idea that it's simmering in me. It's a kind of Regency adventure story using antiques. Regency setting with antiques of a specific variety and really fun adventure, but also a bit of commentary about what that world was really like, taking out a little bit of the nonsense that people believe about the Regency period, the same way I did with the Falconer stories about the Hellfire Club. It's like, I'm sorry, people, the Hellfire Club wasn't a tenth as interesting as the fictional versions. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, the one Hellfire Club I know,
X-Men.
X-Men. That's absolutely right.
That's the one I didn't know about the real version. I did not. I knew the X-Men version. I was living in England. I went into a store and they were selling some used books, and one of it said the real Hellfire Club. All right, I heard of them from the X-Men, and then I started reading about Sir Francis Dashwood and the Earl of Sandwich and George Doddington and all these famous politicians and artists, and I'm reading, and it was very sensationalized and all that. And then within a year, I saw the Hellfire Club movie, a Hammer movie with Peter Cushing has a very, very, very tiny part in it. And that was funny and ridiculous. And then I actually started reading the real histories of them, and it's much, much less interesting.
Yeah, the X-Men was. Except like that's the reason why when I saw Logan, I'm going like, yeah, this is some bullshit because they took Donald Pierce out of it, and it's like Donald Pierce, that's not who he is. That's not what this character is. Not what not, And I'm like, you just took the guy's name, but you didn't. Oh, it's just like
no. Well, the problem is that they really forgot the roots of that Hellfire Club. Everyone was based on an amazing actor of the period. Sebastian Shaw was very Robert Shaw, complete with even the way he looked and moved. Donald Pierce, Donald Sutherland. And Emma Frost was based on Faye Dunaway, which is the only one that didn't have that. I don't remember who Harry Leland was based on, but probably Orson Welles.
Yeah, Falstaff, I think was his character's name. Yeah, I think it was Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, probably, but they had this very specific look to them, and then they stole the scenes from the Hellfire Club from the Avengers TV show with Patrick Macnee and our favorite.
I mean, they're dressed the part. They're all dressed in the in the years of the real Hellfire Club. They all dressed the same way. And so you could tell it was a very cool concept, and hats off to Chris Claremont for coming up with it for sure.
It was, and the art also, John Byrne's art combined with Chris Claremont's writing, that was such brilliant stuff. That was real storytelling. Yes. I've never met either of those gentlemen. I've met some people in the business, but I've never met those two. But that's what I'd like to tell them, that they created a genuine literary tale. Okay, it had powers and mutants and all that, but you created something that was so unique and interesting. It took things out of the past, out of the movies, TV shows, and
Mhm.
history. I really enjoyed that. And of course, it went downhill because they started using it too much, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, during that creation of that time period, that was definitely the one of the heydays for comic books in general, much less
Definitely.
Marvel.
You
Yeah,
still
I
had,
love John Burns, right? I like John Burns, probably my second favorite writer behind George Perez. But
I met him. What an amazing human being.
man,
I
that guy
love
could
George
draw his ass
Perez.
off.
Jim Starlin, I met too. I know a bunch of them.
Did you ever
And
get to meet Steranko?
I did, and I have a funny story about that if you want to hear it.
He's yeah,
I
yeah,
was
he's a
at
badass.
Oh, he's an amazing human being. I was at Pulp Fest, and at Pulp Fest, there's a auction house there, and this woman is like this manager of it, and I've known her for years. She's this really funny person, really attractive, and I was talking to her, and we're always making fun of each other and laughing. And at one point, I said, there's like a $1,500 shadow pulp right next to me. Literally, shoulder is right next to it. And I said, it's only my parents raising me right. That doesn't have me pocketing this right now. So that all of a sudden, this hand hits my shoulder. And a guy says to me, you like the shadow? I do art. Let me show you. And he opens it up, and I haven't really looked at him. He opens up this portfolio. I'm looking down, and I leaf it. And I said to her, and I'm shell shocked. That's Jim Steranko. And she's laughing at me, and she's saying, yeah, I know. We all know. You're the only one who doesn't know. And I'm like, tongue tied for the first time. Like, Mr. Steranko, I've been a fan my whole life of your work. And I ended up meeting him and talking to him and buying stuffing from him. And he signed a shadow book for me that he did the
Nice.
art. And he even gave me he wanted me to write an email to him. He gave me his email. He said, you don't give this to anybody. I said, no, I promise.
No, because he kind of come over and beat you down for it too.
Well, no, not me.
He had,
I'm not. I'm the one who's not worried about that.
yeah,
But follow this
he
up.
had a temper. He had a temper.
He does, and I've heard it. I've seen it. I still got to ask him a story about him and Bob Kane. There's a story about that. I've met a lot of these guys, like Howard Chaykin. I love talking to him. He's one of the funniest human beings in the world. But Steranko, I was so shell shocked. At one point, he's talking to me and a bunch of my friends, and one of our friends, who's this preacher and he's a writer, didn't know who he was and says, "Excuse me, who are you?" He says, "I'm Jim Steranko." My friend, and he dropped to his knees and going, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy." We were dying laughing. All this happens at Pulp Fest on a regular basis. Pulp Fest is fun.
I saw him at a radio convention, and yeah, I was just sitting there watching him, sign, and I just, I just waited patiently. This is back when you could do that. And then he looked up, and I just said, "Thank you for everything you've done." I said, "I've bought so many of your books with the covers on it. I had just about every shadow book that you did with the cover. Like, it's just art. It's in itself. It's almost to the point now. If you ever got the book, you could almost, if you would like to try to get two copies if you could, one for the collection and one just so you could take the cover off and frame it by itself. Because the art was so good."
I actually had. I also met Joe Lansdale the same day I met him, and both times I said the same thing to them. They said, "Do you want just the name?" I said, "No, I'm not reselling it. You dedicate it.
Yeah.
Say what you like to me. This is never leaving the collection."
No. Yeah, I always ask for that too. That's awesome you mentioned that, Frank, because every time I went up there and got an autograph from somebody, I would always have them sign it to me because I didn't want anybody else to have it. It's just for me. It's like, that's cool as hell.
Yeah, I wanted it, especially Joe Lansdale, who spent the weekend teaching me martial arts and beating up on me in a great way. I had such a great time with him. He knows so much. He is so fast, and he's such an amazing martial artist. And I was afraid of occupying too much time. And I was walking past him on Friday night. I said, "Hey, how you doing, Joe?" And he said, "Hey, come see me tomorrow. I got a whole lot more to teach you." It's
Oh,
like, oh
awesome.
God, what that was like such a gift. It's like everything could go wrong this weekend, and and I'm gonna walk out smiling because of that
Yeah.
alone. So yeah, I've had good luck.
Ah, all right. We have went way past our point, but I can already tell you, you're gonna have to come back to us because, man, I'm gonna talk martial arts again with you. I think we would have a lot of fun with that. And if you want to do that, I would love to have you back.
It would be my
And
honor.
of course, we'll go ahead and get more into your books as well. Um, just a fantastic show tonight. I can't thank you guys enough in the chat. You guys really rocked it out. Tom mentioned here, uh, and uh, and of course Danielle is will be here tomorrow, and she's going to talk to us about the editing side of the writing. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you guys will be here for it. Let's see. Tom mentions that there's no sword movies these days, no Basil Rathbone or Errol Flynn, or no Captain Blood or the Seahawk.
Oh, I love
Uh,
Sabatini. I collect Sabatini. I'm one of the few left. I get them all in paperback because I love them so much, and there's none of that left. That's why I started writing the Falcon, probably because I'm trying to bring back the Seahawk and Captain Blood and Treasure in the Pacific and all that fun stuff. Just with a little bit of history.
I love pirate movies. I mean, pirate movies are a lot of fun, and one of my favorite ones is the movie that got ridiculed, but I love it to death, and that's Cutthroat Island. Man, Gina
I like
Davis
it. It was
never.
fun. Hey, I like
You
one just as ridiculed, Swashbuckler with Robert Shaw and
That's
James
right.
Earl Jones. I,
That's right, man. I have not seen that out in forever in the wild, but I do remember that movie.
yeah,
Um,
Jeffrey
let's,
Holder was in it too.
Tom mentions I rewatched The Count of Monte Cristo with Guy Pearce. That was so good. Yes, we talked about that
Yes,
earlier.
it's a great
Yeah,
one.
that was a great copy. Great version of the movie.
There's a
Um,
great version of the Three Musketeers that was done in French with Ava Green playing Milady.
y-
It's
yes.
wonderful. Two
Oh my
movies.
gosh, she's perfect as my lady, isn't she?
She really is. Oh my God,
She's
she's so beautiful and so interesting looking and such a good actress.
different. I really where I became an Eva Green fan was the Golden Compass.
The one that
So
really convinced me totally to her was Penny Dreadful, but I loved her in everything I've ever seen her in.
I have Penny Dreadful. I probably need to do an episode of that for
I
Retro
love,
2.
I love
All
that.
right. We will be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with Danielle's son B. And thank you, Steve, and Lucas Boy for coming by. I want to thank you guys in the chat for keeping it popping tonight. I really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and look forward to you then. Frank, stay right where you're at for a minute, and to everybody else, I say good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.